It's finally here. The Temple of Gainz Quadsend, my most anticipated piece of equipment. The pre-order that I got in on the early Kickstarter 6 months ago has finally arrived, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I think about this thing after using it for the past week. Let's go. What's up, guys? Kyle with hypertrophy.com, the best place to design your home gym and develop your training program. Today, we are looking at the Temple of Gainz Quadsend, my most anticipated piece of equipment of the year. I fell in love with this thing as soon as I saw it last year at Home Gym Con through videos of other creators, and having used the Temple of Gainz multi-flight over the last year, I knew that this was going to be on another level. I didn't quite understand what level that was. I can confidently say that this thing is a step above every other piece of equipment that I own in terms of quality, attention to detail, and just pure flawless execution of what the movement is supposed to feel like. I have been the owner of a RitFit Gazelle, which is also a hack squat leg press, and while that is a solid piece of equipment, it is nowhere near the level of this machine. Now, granted, this is 3 to 4 times more expensive. I did purchase this at the Kickstarter price of $3,500 last November. Nowadays, if you wanted to buy the base unit, I think it's closer to $4,200, and all of the additional add-ons can get closer to $5,000. So this is extremely expensive. It's nowhere near the other offerings in this space. But in terms of what we're working with in a home gym, space is the biggest constraint. And so regardless of what that price is, if you can combine two incredibly impressive movements that both take up a ton of space in their own right into a single machine with no limitations and no drawbacks, then it's worth that price. And I'm going to show you exactly what this thing does and why it's so special compared to everything else on the market. So the first thing you need to understand with this thing is it is big. At 99.3 inches long, this was just under the 100-inch mark, which I felt was the max that I could go if I was going to comfortably fit this in my space. So I'm very grateful that the final production unit actually came within that 100-inch mark, which is a massive allotment of space. On the width side of things, there's a few different options depending on how you spec this out. So the foot plate for the hack squat is right around 36 inches in width, and that's the smallest that this machine can be. So if you got the Voltra connection unit and you're just going to use that as the way of loading resistance, then you can actually keep this at a 36-inch width. If you add the small weight horn for plate loading, which is what I have on there, that is 50 inches in width. If you add the weight horns for storage, that takes you up to 55 inches in width. And then if you add the super massive plate loading horn, that is 66 inches in width, this can take up quite a bit of space. But unless you really need to put 2,000 pounds on this machine, you don't need that massive weight horn. The small one is going to be just fine. I've gone up to 6 plates on each side on leg press so far, and that's pretty much all that I can really use, and I've still got room for 3-4 more plates depending on how thick those are. So there's plenty of room on this machine without going the super massive width. Now, getting this into your space is another story entirely, and I want to show you exactly how I planned this out because, like I said, 100 inches was what I thought was going to be the absolute max for me possible. So if we look at what my setup was before bringing the Quadsend in, you can see what my layout is here. And I actually had an issue with this setup. So I had my Gazelle Pro over here and my Titan Fitness leg extension, and then the selectorized multi-flight from also Temple of Gainz. But I needed to move my new Freak Athlete Apex back over onto this wall because of the height issue with the vents where this was sitting currently in my gym. So I needed this to come back over on this side. And when we factor in how big the Quadsend in, because I was originally just going to replace the RitFit Gazelle with the Quadsend and just put that right here, but I'll show you just how much space this thing takes up as a comparison, because what you'll notice in my gym here is that I have this green marked out as my lunge lane. So I want to keep that as open as possible to be able to do walking lunges and maybe farmer's carries or anything else in here. So you can see just how massive the Quadsend is. Now this is in its full expanded version. I can actually decrease the size of this with the stow button to take it into that tighter allotment with that 50-inch width, and we can see just what size-wise we're looking at compared to the Gazelle Pro, significantly more length there. And so as I'm looking at this, putting this in the same spot, I'm like, this is getting a little bit too tight in here. And then I'm close to my furnace over here, which is blocked off, and I want to get the apex in here. So how am I going to make this work? Well, what I decided on is that I can actually move the multi-flight over here onto this wall. I'm going to cut off a little bit of that lunge lane, slide the leg extension leg curl over closer to my Adonis, and I still have room to use the second Adonis over here, as you'll see. And then the Quadsend can actually come in here second with both room on side to side for either weight horn. We can get rid of the Gazelle Pro because I'm going to be selling that. I don't need 2 hack squat leg presses in here. And then once that is out of the way, we can take our apex from Freak Athlete and slide that up into the top and even all of these out. And I'll give you guys a little preview into what's coming in GymSmith with the 3D rendering here. It's not quite ready to ship, so when you see this, it's not going to be out just yet, but it is on its way. And so that can show you a little bit of just how massive this thing is and what it took to get in here. So it's not going to work in every space, but if you can make it work, I highly advise you to try. Now let's get back to the good stuff. Now let's get into what you came here for, which are the exercises. We're going to start with the hack squat, which is my favorite movement on this. The hack squat on this machine is unlike anything else I've ever tried. I would consider the range of motion to be infinite, meaning that you are more likely to get crushed into 1,000 pieces before you bottom out this machine. I've never seen anything like this. The brilliance of this design is that the back pad, which also serves as the foot plate for the leg press, is built on top of the rails that slide over the seat for the leg press. On every other combo unit that I've seen, this runs into the seat and it limits the range of motion of the hack squat, or vice versa on the leg press. You never see both movements getting the entirety of the range of motion. That is not an issue whatsoever on this machine. I kid you not, you cannot bottom this out. I don't care how flexible you are, you simply can't do it, or you're just going to completely round over in the hole and it's not going to make any sense. The amount of range of motion on this cannot be understated, so that is why I love this first and foremost. With the hack squat setup specifically, you simply flip the leg press pad out of the way. That stands off on its own. You can take it off completely if you like, but I don't really see any reason to do that. There's a beautifully laser etched Temple of Gainz logo on the underside of that pad, which is, again, just another crazy bit of attention to detail there. And the first thing that you notice as you get into this hack squat is the foot plate is just absolutely massive. The biggest complaint that I had on the RipFit Gazelle was that the foot plate was too short for me. So whenever I was doing hack squats, my toes were always off at the top. With this thing, if I was to try to get anywhere near the edges, I wouldn't be in a realistic stance to do any sort of exercise. I can get into any position that I want, wide stance, high, low, and just be perfectly comfortable with wherever my feet are situated on this. When we get into position for the hack squat, we've got really nice padded shoulder pads up here. Again, our beautifully knurled handles, and then we go into our movement. Now, what's really cool about this machine that I'll show you is that if you're not in the top safety, this has an auto unlocking feature. At the top, there's nothing for it to hit, so you can't auto unlock, and unfortunately, I'm too tall for the hack squat to be able to use that feature, but it does work for me on the leg press, and I'll show you what I mean. So if you are in one of the lower safety positions, you can simply push straight up into the machine and have those safeties disengage for you. Now, it's not the biggest deal in the world that I can't use that, but it's just another cool attention to detail thing that I never would have thought of before using this piece of equipment. Now, hack squats by themselves are great, but my absolute favorite way to perform them, and arguably my favorite quad exercise, is actually the reverse band hack squat. And this machine comes with 12 band pegs. You don't see them out right now because I have them mostly stored on the inside of the machine. So I have 6 stored underneath this foot plate that I'm not using. I'm typically not one to do regular band resistance leg press or hack squat, but the reverse band is really, really nice. And I also have 3 band pegs in the back here, which is what I use to set those up. So with the reverse band setup, you can do this in any number of ways, and that's part of what makes having so many band pegs really nice, is that no matter how long your bands are, you can dial in the exact tension that you need to find the specific range of motion that you either want to relieve or add resistance to. So when I am setting this up, I lay it on the top band peg, come over the middle of the weight horn carriage, and then provide extra tension with this bottom band peg, and then anchor into the middle. And my favorite part about this is you can set up the reverse band without any impact on loading plates on the sleeve, because all of this can be wrapped around inside the weight horn. A couple other things to look at in terms of the machine itself is that we have 2 different safety pins down here. So we have a super long one and a short one to change out depending on how deep that you want to go. I typically save the longer one for the leg press because I have a lot more length to come down on, and then I use the shorter one on the hack squat. Again, I am nowhere near bottoming this machine out, and I'm pretty certain that nobody really can. And then to transition from the hack squat to the leg press, we take this middle pad and just pull it straight out. This gives us room to flip up the leg press foot plate, and then we have 2 little sockets on either end of the machine that store the pin to be able to lock this in place. So again, just small little attention to detail that serves itself so well throughout every aspect of this machine. So we flip the leg press pad down, and then from this position I need to lower it just a little bit to get down to where I can get my feet on the pad. And then this is where I can actually leverage that auto unlocking feature by simply pushing up and having those kick out. And we have our nice smooth leg press safeties working in the exact same way. We've got these nice knurled handles down here for the leg press. And then another detail on this thing, which I have never seen on any machine anywhere, is these hooks that are added on both sides of the machine. And that is for you to use a chain that came in the equipment bag with a set of D handles to be able to just hold on to that as a separate way of pulling yourself down. It's not something that I use. It's not something I've ever even thought of, but the fact that that's there is just showing you how much thought went into the execution of this piece of equipment. In the leg press itself, we also have this bar at the bottom, which serves as a calf raise block, and that does a great job of that. I did not elect to put the grip tape on either of the foot plates that this came with. I'm just using the base metal tread plates, which I think are working just fine. And as far as the leg press goes, I couldn't be happier. There's no part of this that I can even really critique. It's just a fantastic leg press. Now there is one more movement that this Quadsend can do, and that is what I would call a hack press or a leg press in reverse kind of thing. I don't really know what the true name for it is, but that is with this extra piece of equipment over here that came in the Kickstarter bundle. This is something I believe you would have to order separately, but this is a plate that anchors on in the middle. I think we're mostly good there. And now we have another movement that's going to use the hack squat foot plate, but from this position, which is literally just a leg press in reverse. And so I'm not gonna lie, this is not my favorite movement. I don't really see much of a benefit to it. And for me personally, I'm also not really getting the best setup out of it because I've tried anchoring onto these handles at the bottom, which are a little bit low. And at the bottom, I noticed that I can actually pull the seat up because there's nothing anchoring this down. I actually found as I was using this that the more comfortable position for me was to actually just hold the back of the seat pad up here as I'm doing the reps. And so this, I'm assuming, is just one of those movements that you can experiment with, and it might be something that you absolutely love. For me, it's not one that I would ever really mix in too often, just because of how cumbersome getting the pad on and off is compared to everything else. I mean, the other movements are so easy to swap between. I pretty much feel like I'm in the same position as a leg press, but with kind of less stability. So I don't know, it just doesn't really translate for me. One other thing I need to mention about that hack squat pad is that it actually does store on the back of this machine if you have room for that. I obviously have this pushed up against the wall, so I can't access that, but it does have a port to be able to store that into. You can also store your extra safeties on the back of the machine as well. There's 2 hooks, one on either side, so that you can store whichever one away that you're not using. I actually like to just keep mine at the bottom of the machine so I can swap between them pretty quickly. But there are so many storage points for every piece of this machine that if you have the space, especially away from the wall, everything can just bolt onto this and you don't have to put it anywhere else in your gym. Now, one other thing I did want to show here is how smooth this thing is with uneven weight. Just to show you how solid this thing is, we have 5 plates on one side of the machine, and you would literally never know that this wasn't perfectly evenly weighted and evenly distributed between both sides. This is so premium and such an incredible design. Most home gym machines cannot do this. If you were to put 2-3 plates on one side and leave the other side empty, you're going to notice some differential, some drag there. This is true commercial quality, where you can just beat the crap out of this thing, completely load one side, unload the other, and never notice a difference with how this thing performs, which is just such a remarkable characteristic of any home gym machine. So seriously, full stop, end of the story. This is the best combo leg press hack squat unit that you can buy. There is not a competitor to this. If there are other machines out there that are worth buying, it's because they're cheaper or smaller. They're not better. This is honestly as good as I think you can make a hack squat leg press. This is going to leave you wanting for nothing. Now, it's extremely expensive and it's massive, so it's probably not going to fit in most home gyms. It's probably not going to fit into most home gym budgets. But if you're in the space where you're trying to add those last few pieces, those machines that really round out the experience, that put it on the level of working out in a commercial facility, then if you have the means and space, this is it. Stop looking for something else. Stop comparing it to buying a commercial leg press and a commercial hack squat. That's stupid. This has ended the conversation. This is what you buy. This is it. I'm not being paid to say this. I do have an affiliate link with Temple of Gainz. You can choose to support me through that link or not. I don't care. I am thrilled to own the Quadsend. This is a grail piece of equipment for me. This is never leaving my gym, and this is the nicest thing that I own in this entire space. So thank you, Yoni and Temple of Gainz, for putting in all of the effort that you did to build this, the home gym community. Thanks you. And if you have the opportunity to add this to your gym, do it yesterday. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will catch you again in the next one.